World leaders from the group of 7, popularly known as the G7 nations, have arrived in Kananaskis in Alberta, which is a remote town nestled in the Canadian Rockies, for the 51st G7 summit set to begin from the 15th of June to 17th. The picturesque setting belies the tense mood expected at this year's gathering, which is shaping up to be one of the most consequential in decades. So who's coming this year and what will they be talking about? Here are 5 things to watch out for at Canada's G7 summit this year. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and the European Union are all represented. POTUS Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, her Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer have all reached Canada. This year's host, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, has extended invitations to several non-G7 leaders as well. Among the confirmed guests are India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has also been invited, but his participation remains uncertain so far. Now let's take a look at the agenda. Officially, the summit is focused on 3 main themes: protecting the global communities, building energy security and accelerating digital transformation, and finally, securing future partnerships. But beneath these broad priorities, several urgent geopolitical flashpoints are expected to dominate discussions in this year's G7 summit. First off, the Iran-Israel conflict could overshadow everything. Tensions in the Middle East, particularly escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, are expected to take center stage. Ongoing missile exchanges and civilian casualties have raised alarms across global capitals. While not on the original agenda, this crisis may hijack the summit's focus as leaders seek to prevent a regional spillover or a full-blown war. And then, of course, is the Canadian-American equation. One of the most closely watched interactions will be between host Mark Carney and US President Donald Trump. The two have a complicated relationship, especially after Trump previously questioned Canada's sovereignty and even hinted at annexation, which is a remark that drew swift condemnation in Ottawa. This summit marks Trump's second G7 meet in Canada. His first in 2018 ended with him refusing to sign the joint communique and calling the then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau very dishonest and weak. Now, with Carney at the helm, expectations are high that tensions may surface again, especially around trade, foreign policy, and leadership styles. And then, of course, there's the big T word, trade. While Carney is pushing for unity around supply chains and global cooperation, China looms large in the background. G7 finance ministers recently issued a veiled warning about a non-market practice, which is a reference often aimed at China's trade policies. Though not explicitly named, these concerns about subsidies, currency manipulation, and predatory lending are likely to prompt debate, specifically from the Trump camp. Also expected on the trade front are renewed talks on ensuring fair access to critical minerals, especially rare earths essential for green tech and defense technologies. Moving on, there is pressure on Putin for the Russia-Ukraine war. The war in Ukraine remains a major topic. Earlier this year, G7 foreign ministers warned Russia of further costs if it refused to pursue peace. The United Kingdom and EU already imposed a fresh wave of sanctions in May. However, Trump has taken a different approach, engaging directly with Vladimir Putin and ruling out new US sanctions. That divergence could lead to heated discussions over how to present a united front. Canada also wants the summit to spotlight climate resilience, especially in the light of its catastrophic 2023 wildfire season. While no major climate pledges are expected during these discussions, the summit could center on prevention and international coordination. The summit is also expected to address artificial intelligence governance, migrant and drug trafficking, energy security, and international security cooperation. This summit marks the 51st in the G7 history. The group began in 1975 as the G6 because Canada joined later in 1976 and briefly became the G8 when Russia was admitted in 1998. Russia was expelled in 2014 after annexing Crimea. Today, the G7 represents about 44% of global GDP, but only 10% of the world's population, with the United States as the largest economy by far. As the world leaders gather at Kananaskis, the stakes could not be higher. What happens over these 3 days could shape the global order for years to come. For more updates on the G7 summit, stay tuned to the official YouTube channel of the Indian Express.